Hi, Norris. Are you on?
Well, on, but
Okay.
muted.
Hang on one second. Let me just get Chad the link.
Got it. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Hi, Chad. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good.
It looks dark there.
It feels dark here.
What time is it there?
5 a.m.
Oh, man, we're so sorry.
Don't be.
No, we're really excited that you joined us. Are you going to go for a run after this?
No, not this morning. I gotta get out to Windy, which is about a 3 or 4 hour drive. So I gotta hop in the car and go after this.
Ah, okay. Well, 3 or 4 hour drive. I just drove up to Kansas City, so I hear you. Hello, Eric, and I see a bunch of people. I feel like that old TV show where you say, "Oh, I see so and so and so and so," and I'm probably dating myself. Now I'm going to be quiet. And I will let Eric and Norris lead the call. Maybe give 5 minutes or so for people to sign on, especially since this is a new call time. Benjamin, I'm glad that you found us. And if the person at the 919 phone number will tell me who they are, I will write their name on there.
Sure. This is Crystal German.
Crystal.
Uh-huh. And then German like the language.
German like the language. Perfect. Okay, so that we have you identified on the call recording. That's great. And I only see 4 faces, including mine, so everybody's got their cameras off. Oh, see, now I knew Dell wouldn't be too shy for too long.
Hey.
Hello, Mr. Gaines. Are you going to see our mutual friend, Rose Washington, anytime soon?
No, I haven't. I don't think I'm going down there till next year.
You should come visit. So, we give it another minute or two before we get started, and we get to see your face, Nora, so that you and Eric can kind of lead the way, maybe.
Yeah, to show my video or do voice, I have to mark it as muted.
Ah. Okay.
I've toggled something weird in Zoom, or Zoom is just messing with me. Because sometimes it doesn't work like that, but at least it's not Skype, which does all sorts of strange things on occasion.
Just, not that we're advocating for one company as opposed to the other, right?
No, I said it's sort of like learning management systems. Which is the worst video conferencing program in the world? Answer: the one you're using. The best one is the one you haven't tried yet. It's very tech dependent. When someone from GoToMeeting says, "Well, your bandwidth is too strong," I'm not sure I wanted to believe him, but nothing surprises me anymore. And so we just smile and muddle through.
Okay, that's a good plan.
Excellent. So we have a couple of geezers like Eric and me, and a lot of new people. Though Dell is looking very distinguished. No response. He's like.
Dell has that effect, yeah.
And Chad,
is that what the distinguished is?
What? The beard?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure it makes. I just said English. So Saturday, people came up to me and started talking to me in Spanish. So I'm not sure what that means. Of course, it was the annual Latino Fest. So probably they jumped to an assumption. But my Spanish is worse than my French. And in France, they ask, "Sir, please speak English." And of course, the English think I don't speak English. I speak American. So anyway. So we want to wait a little bit, just a teeny bit more, or do we?
I think Eric needs to figure out what geezer means in this context. So
I'm sorry, a veteran of these calls, battle scarred or otherwise.
I feel better about that. Okay, so it's 2:05. We'll get started. Norris, do you or Eric want to start?
Sure. That one of the things that I'm trying to figure out, make sure I was fiddling with something on the computer, and it almost closed this window, which would not have been good. Basically, we have a lot of people who are relatively new on this call, so I think it would be useful if Eric and I sort of share with you an overview of Goal 5, kind of an overview of how the format of these calls going forward, and kind of a quick overview about how these project teams might move forward, and then we can talk some more. I suspect there'll be some questions and concerns, and we can try to answer that. To me, I'm sort of biased. I think Goal 5 is the coolest goal. It's at least as cool as the other 6 or 7, depending on how you count storytelling. But I'm assuming that most of the people, I'm looking at most of these people have not been on this call before. So one of these, have any, chime in and just say, yo, if you've never been on one of these goal calls before. Yo.
I have not.
I have not either.
So 3 haven't.
So
Andy, have you been on one of these calls before?
no. So
Okay.
So why don't we introduce them to the fact that it's a new iteration, so they don't feel like they've missed out on anything. I don't want.
Well, it's because of course you've missed some things, but Celia's right. You have to want to assure you that we're in sort of this brave new world. The issue that does everybody really understand Goal 5? If you maybe wave at the screen, or do you really need a quick primer on all that? I'm assuming that I probably should go ahead and do that. Is basically the Goal 5 is about how do we help ecosystem builders become more evidence-based. Yes, it has kind of a dorky name, but fundamentally it's about getting better metrics, better methods, and better analysis moving forward. And the 3 or 4 or 5 sub goals under this initiative address those points. And we've got 3 that are published. There are a couple more that are not on the list. We can move forward on. But I think, yeah, the new format. Eric, I need better glasses, maybe. Eric, talk about the new. Would you like to talk about the new format of the calls?
Sure. So, and so to amplify and. Well, I think the thing that we're trying to say is, in some ways, yes, this is a new iteration. There have been these calls kind of going on, for a little while. However, this is a new opportunity to involve and bring in many of the folks who participated in various forms of, whether they attended the ESHIP Summit, but they weren't part of the previous calls and all that, or they've simply become aware of this through friends and colleagues and the Facebook group, et cetera. So, one of the ongoing challenges with this overall effort is there are folks who have been working, knee deep, neck deep in different projects and things related to ESHIP for quite some time. And there are other folks with great expertise and experience and, aspects and views on all this that we need to include, but they haven't been part of it yet. So in order to do that, kind of relaunching or re-inviting new folks into these different calls so that they can participate. So I think that might be enough context for now. If you're in exactly the right place, if you're interested in this general topic. If you're interested in, I don't know, selling floor products, this is not the right goal. But aside from that,
Eric, can I interest you in Amway? Eric, right, is that fundamentally, you know, if you've been on the calls before, there was a somewhat different format, but fundamentally, this is about moving from the design phase of ESHIP to the delivery phase. Our goal over the next few months is to start really getting project teams organized and moving forward so we can actually get busy. We have lost some outstanding people from these calls because we haven't been able to move fast enough. And I think finally we're addressing that. There are a bunch of projects that have been discussed on these calls. I'll drop a link into that onto them later into the chat. But that the opportunity here is to build on those, or to come up with your own projects. That this is the nice thing that I'm hoping that list of projects is going to get a lot bigger. We have 7 projects that came out of the hackathon, and some of those, couple of them are actually moving forward. So I think that's very good. It's an opportunity to be optimistic and say, how do we plan to push this stuff forward?
So Norris, if I can just give a little bit of framework to some of the things that we've gone on, and maybe invite people to introduce themselves so we can meet the people.
And, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
So just to let everyone know, in the past year or so, since the 2018 ESHIP Summit, we've hosted monthly calls around each of the ESHIP goals. But as Norris said, you know, as we go from design to deliver, there have been project teams that are starting to form and ideas that are being shared. So what we wanted to do as we kicked off this new cadence of goal meetup calls is to really make it more of a meetup situation where you get to meet other people that are working in projects similar to things that interest you. So the goal of these calls going forward has a cadence of, for the first 10 or 15 minutes of a call, to be able to check back in and give updates on where those project teams are going, and give more visibility and some alignment to some of the work that's being done, so that we combat those dreaded silos that we're always talking about. So you can see what people are working on, maybe an opportunity to work in tandem or to ideate with other people. So just the first couple of minutes of the beginning of the call would be an opportunity for each of the project teams to be able to update the community on the things that are going on around their projects, and then you can meet up and connect to each other. Then another 15 or so minutes of peer learning. So we wanted these calls to be centered around a topic, a discussion, an opportunity to learn from each other or from some thought leaders in the ecosystem to be able to work around some of the things that are involved in Goal 5, and then have a discussion with your peers on a monthly basis to be able to talk about the
Celia just froze up. Can you guys hear me? Wait, Eric, can you, okay. That fundamental updates, peer learning, that as we move forward. Now, each goal is going to end up having its own sort of flavor, its own personality on these calls. So one of the things that you know, on our to-do list here is particularly want to check in with the people who haven't been on these calls before, and I want to find some of you I don't know, So you're new to me, and that's exciting. So can you give a 25 words or less introduction? Jared, can we start with you?
Sure. My name is Jared Reynolds. I work in community and economic development at the University of New Hampshire Cooperative Extension. And I have a focus on entrepreneurship and increasing entrepreneurship in rural areas in our state, do programming and research, and but focus on practical work here.
Yeah, I picked you first because you were the first name to pop up on the participant list when I.
Perfect.
So
Hope I set a good standard.
Well, you're clearly doing better than I would do. So, Ms. German, Crystal, would.
Yeah, Crystal German here. I do work in community economic development and minority business development, so kind of the intersection of traditional ED and where minority communities need to be engaged. And I participated in the 2018 ESHIP Summit. And so I was just curious to see what these calls were about and how best to engage.
Excellent, thank you. Chad, I have met. You don't have any pictures of kangaroos for us, do you?
No. My pet kangaroo is back in the paddock.
Well. Anyway, Chad posted a photo of creatures invading his campus area. So Chad, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, you bet. So primary focus is in two areas. One is building collaborative bodies for supporting entrepreneurship, particularly in regional areas. Focus of my current PhD is on that, which is the role of the Innovation Hub as a construct in building resilience in regional areas. Acting director for Global Entrepreneurship Network for Australia, and also working on building a national approach to measuring the impact of entrepreneurs, which involves tapping into traditional back-end government data aligned with front-end platforms and tying directly into hubs. So we get an aggregate view of what's happening in innovation hubs and programs across Australia.
So you're working on your PhD?
Yeah, theoretically, pun intended, be done by the end of the year.
Oh, good. Well, you have good company in Del Gines, perhaps our most distinguished member on this call. Del, you're still working on yours, right?
Yes, I am. I am.
And to both of you, you have my condolences. But knowing that what you're working on is going to make a difference, want to be as encouraging as possible. Del, I suspect there are people who don't know who you are, so could you give us a quick intro?
Yeah, I'm Del Gines, Senior Community Development Advisor, Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. And I do all of our small business and economic development work. I mostly focus on entrepreneurship-led economic development for the bank.
What a shock to find out the Federal Reserve has gone in so deep on that. And speaking of poor suffering doctoral students, Christy Carter, would you chime in?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Christy, and I'm working on my PhD in leadership at UCA, the University of Central Arkansas, actually located about 30 miles north from Little Rock, which is the capital city. Anyway, I'm looking to map the ecosystem for minority entrepreneurs in Arkansas. And then specifically for my study, I will focus on Black women in the Delta region of the state, which is the poorest region of the state, but Black women are starting more businesses than any other population. So I really want to focus on that. And right now I'm just a loner. I'm still in the whole design phase of trying to map the actual ecosystem. There are ecosystem builders in Arkansas, but we haven't put a system together. So I'm actually looking for resources, looking for private consultants who could kind of give us some ideas about the best ways to move forward. So please reach out to me. And thanks, Dr. Norris, for letting me come in on this call.
Well, Tiffany Henry would break my arms if I didn't. So she's, you know, Crystal is a buddy of Tiffany's. So that's that's a pretty good endorsement. Is it Andrea or Andrea?
Hi, everybody. It's Andrea, but like I always say, I have a lot of friends who call me Andrea, and as long as you don't call me late for dinner, it's good to go. So, but I work for the International Business Innovation Association. We are the world's largest organization for entrepreneurship centers, incubators, accelerators, SBDCs, you name it. I'm actually excited to share that I just wrapped up a 42-month project for the EDA. We were running the nation's largest study of the impact of entrepreneurship centers on entrepreneurs. Actually, some really exciting, interesting findings from a correlation study that was co-worked on this project with us with the University of Central Florida. Some of you may know Tom O'Neill in the space.
Yeah.
And
love him.
I would love to share. It's all open source, and I'll put the link here. And we have a very friendly interface where folks can actually do comparative a look at the data across regions and by entrepreneurship center types. And then that correlation study has some very exciting information about how these programs and centers help America's small businesses. It's very fresh data. So I'm really excited to share that. But yeah, we're big fans of metrics, and very excited about this goal.
Oh, well, that's intriguing. I had heard rumors of this study from Tom. He seemed to imply there are some very surprising results, both good and bad. Things that worked you wouldn't have expected, and things that didn't work that you would have expected to work. So that's always kind of really, you know, new novel insights are really important, and that's good for ecosystem builders in any community to be on top of the metrics, you know, be able to, you know, to share the information that's out there. That it's one way for ecosystem builders to build their credibility and legitimacy in a community is to be the data mavens for that. So that's very exciting. I think the only other new person on the call is Ben. Sorry for you to go last.
No worries. Hey everyone, this is Ben. I'm from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. And I think I'm on the call in part because statistics was one of the more interesting parts of my science, technology, and environmental policy master's program, and because I want to try and apply that knowledge while also learning more about how to set sort of the before numbers for an innovation district that I'm not quite an innovation district that I'm working on.
Well, it sounds, we got to, who haven't I think that's everybody who is new to the calls. I see Adam and Stacy were on the call before. If I missed anybody besides those, if not, Adam.
Andy hasn't been on the calls.
Andy has not been on the calls?
No.
Well, we should introduce Andy. Andy,
hello.
Tell us how wonderful you are.
This is my first Goal 5 group call. So hello, everyone who I don't know. My name is Andy Stoll. I am a Senior Program Officer at the Kauffman Foundation. I am representing today a couple different programs at the foundation. Obviously, there's the ESHIP Summit, which is where we've met many of you, and really trying to accelerate the emergence of ecosystem building as a field, which is sort of the big picture. But particularly for this call, I'm representing today, and I may not always be representing, but a program that the Kauffman Foundation is running in collaboration with Forward Cities called ESHIP Communities, which is in a pilot phase in Kansas City. And we'll be soon kicking off with some other cities, but is actually trying to rigorously test a process to build ecosystems, a sort of method. And Eric will also at some point be able to chime in and tell you more about that because he's working on that project as well. And then I am temporarily representing some of the work that the foundation is doing on the research side around ecosystems, and very, very, very curious to hear what everyone else is working on. So we're looking forward to how this meetup plays out. And I'm hoping I can recruit some more Kauffman folks to join in future meetup calls to bring their expertise. I don't work on the research team, so a lot of what some of the really smart folks on this call are talking about is a bit over my head, but appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, it's no fun unless some of it goes whizzing over your head. It's the only way that we keep growing and learning. So great. Then my probably to cue Eric. You may be co-host, but some of these people may not know how cool you are.
I make no claims to coolness, and my kids remind me of that every day. Let's see. So I am in the city of Albuquerque, sort of more of a grassroots ecosystem builder for the most part, but involved with a number of different projects, including this exciting project with Forward Cities on ESHIP communities. So that's, there's been a lot of work on that so far, but it's really kicking into a very exciting phase on that. For purposes of this, while all the goals are cool and we all have sort of maybe favorite children, I suppose, whether we're allowed to say that or not. So I'm participating probably in a little bit more of an active role on a couple of the other goals. That's the inclusive field and also collaborative culture of collaboration. However, this is also near and dear to my heart because we can't really make a ton of stuff happen if we're not measuring it and we're not explaining it in a way that makes sense to folks who write checks and get elected, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the reasons why I was glad to be one of the helpers on this call. My main role in this one, because it's tough to both facilitate and take notes, is going to be taking notes. I'll share that I put, if you're in the chat, I did put up a link to the agenda and some additional notes. If you've got things to add that we might put in the parking lot or something else, please do so, and I'll try to make sure that gets in there. Also, I think Cecilia's also helping with this, but if you've got some comment that you want to make or make sure it gets included in the discussion, and you throw that in the chat here, I'm one of the folks that'll help make sure that we're getting it covered. So I hope I didn't get on too long, but thank you very much.
Well, we're glad you're doing that because even typing, my handwriting is illegible. So man's got to know his limitations. So this is true. So and also with Forward Cities is Stacy.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So I'll give you a quick overview about myself. I'm the Director of Evaluation at Forward Cities. Came on with Forward Cities a few months ago, and I come from a public health background. And so for those of you who are working on your dissertation, I feel your pain. I have made it past, and you will make it past too, I promise. But at this point, one of the things that I'm working on is helping to evaluate the measurements and develop measurements within Forward Cities. And so I'm excited to work with folks here and learn more about what everyone else is doing.
So the only one left is Adam, who is our data wizard from Denver.
I'm no wizard, but hi, Norris, and thanks. So my name is Adam Rensselaer. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Valid Evaluation. So we are the pioneers of bringing the science of assessment to the entrepreneurship party. And we actually were lucky enough to do a small Kauffman-funded study about 4 years ago that actually proved that we're linearly predictive of 5 different measures of entrepreneurial success. So we're eager to help however we can. Not exactly clear how we're specifically going to plug into Goal 5, but I'm stoked to be part of the conversation and happy to help.
Well, Adam's being modest, but he and there's a gentleman, Alistair Brett from DC, and a guy named Balto from Finland, and every time they go on these calls or on Slack, I learn something. So that's to me, there's no higher praise. So let's shift gears.
Alistair's here.
Oh, Alistair's here. Oh my God. It just popped up on my screen. Alistair, now that I've embarrassed you, could you share a little bit, Alistair?
Oh, I'm not easily embarrassed, so don't worry.
Well, we can work on that.
I've continued work. I guess most relevant to this call would be the interviews that I've been doing for people who responded to the ESHIP Facebook channel, where I asked if people would be willing to have short interviews about an interest in developing tools for measurements. And I had a reasonable response. I've done about 10 interviews so far with more to go. And sometime this week, I'll put the interim results up on the Facebook ESHIP page. My goal is to look for small data, not big data. Look for details, and particularly look for small details that may have a big effect on the system. And then the other part is, again, to take a small sample, but look for what is in common between them, and especially to look for items which, when large amounts of data are aggregated, can sometimes get lost. And yet those items that get lost may be critical. So small data is the approach in this case. I don't know how well it's going to work. I think it's worth a try. And I'll share some of the results this week.
Can I ask, Alistair just mentioned the Facebook page, and if I'm having a problem with my chat, can Eric or Norris please put the link for the dashboard so that everyone will have the link and be able to get on Facebook or the Slack channel? Thank you.
Now, Alistair is also being modest, as he is a well-known expert on complex dynamic systems, and bringing that sensibility to us has been quite illuminating, and I think it means the analysis is harder than maybe we like, but I'm very excited to see what he's come up with in this data. I mean, this is the kind of thing that tells us that doing these projects are going to move the needle. They're going to make a difference. We just have to start coalescing around these teams. I put two different things in the chat. You might that probably have to scroll up. I can post them again, but one is just a simple Google form that captures a little bit of information that so in future calls we'll know more about the people who are already on the call. We'll also know you'll get to see just what amazing resources we have available. That the master email list of this, if you include the hackathon participants, is over 100. Not that all those people are going to show up, because this would be a very crowded call, but you have fallen in a tall cotton in terms of just insane expertise that's on there. But I would be grateful if you would fill out the bio form. That I think that will give us some interesting information. The other thing is there's also a link to kind of a laundry list of the projects that have been discussed on the call, on the Facebook channel, on the Slack channel, and elsewhere, that you may edit, you may fix it, you may change it, you may add your own projects. In particular, thinking about that we don't want to say these are the projects we're going to do, these are the projects we've been talking about. I think some of them are extremely promising, but that's really up to us. It's up to us collectively. So I take a look at that after the call and push through that. Now, Celia said that part of this is doing updates and having but we want to do this some peer learning. We had some people already step up and volunteer to take 10, 15, 20 minutes to teach us something useful and important. But if you are interested in doing that, please let me know, and we'll get you scheduled. That normally these calls will be on Mondays at the same time, but obviously Labor Day was an issue. But in terms of the team building, we have great people. We've got great ideas already, and now we need to start having a discussion. How do we best move forward? But I want to throw the not me talking, not Eric talking, but you talking. That and maybe a good way to start would be sort of a quick round robin. I made you talk about yourself very briefly, but if there was one question that you would like to get answered, that you would like to help answer in all this, what might that be? Jared, I can start off with you again. We have to give Eric lots of stuff to write down. So.
Sure. So, I mean, this
what's your big burning question?
I'm not 100% sure, but I guess in my personal work, focus on rural entrepreneurship, working with some people to create a set of metrics so that rural communities can like direct their projects, initiatives, funding to high impact causes. So sort of like a score metric card. I don't know if that fits with.
No, it is it. Well, there are no right or wrong answers. There are some strange answers, but we're okay with that too. But living in a rural state of Idaho, that I certainly resonate with that. Crystal, what's your big burning question?
I don't know if it's a big burning question, but for me, it's just this exploration of how we can make sure that our measurements don't make disparities, or they actually work for equitable outcomes. So just trying to brainstorm and around with other smart people around how do we make sure that the measurements are measuring what we want, and make sure that they're actually measuring the don't kind of make the problem worse around inequities.
Okay. There's some neat stuff. Chad, what are you sort of told us already, but what is your big burning question?
Yeah, so one of the things I focus on is like not necessarily the metrics of what we measure, but the how, the methodology, and how do we combine both collecting the data with the sustainability of the actors in the ecosystem who help support entrepreneurs. So helping innovation hubs and programs measure their impact, and by then collecting some of the data on effectiveness of those programs, and are we actually moving the dial through the actions that we do.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's see. Andrea. God, I almost said Andrea, sorry. Andrea. Did we lose you, Andrea? Possibly. The Zoom gods are capricious. Ben.
Actually, Andrea, I see, is muted.
Now, Andrea, I see she's muted, but she may have stepped away, or she has a glitch. Ben, what's your big burning question?
I think it goes back to something Andy mentioned about making this field more respected and generalizable, which is how do we produce metrics that are trusted and meaningful to decision makers? Not just ones that we know work from our work in the field, but ones that economic development agencies or stakeholders actually pay attention to without us having to do too much legwork to convince them.
Well, that is a big issue, because sometimes we can present what to us is very compelling data, but the story is not. It goes against the dominant narrative, and it makes it a bit harder. There was an older Kaufman study that was basically how do you pick metrics to make your community look good. That what metrics you choose, there may be, as Crystal mentioned, maybe some biases involved. That Austin, Texas used to lead all of those places rated things, and then we found out the people who were collecting the data were from Austin. but I think there's some really interesting, to unpack that a little, is that how do we make that data compelling? Even is it more, we need more predictability rather than explaining what happened in the past, and how do we build and don't tell Tyler I said this, but we do need the storytelling element of this that's really important in terms of sharing those metrics. Sort of bouncing around. Andrea, are you back?
I am, sorry about that.
Okay, so I'm an old physics guy, and as Richard Feynman said, it's the key to doing great analytics, doing great research is not the tools, but having a great question. So what is your big burning question you would love to see answered, that you would love to help answer as we move forward?
Yeah, sure. So I think it has to do with, what some of the exciting things that we just found out with this correlation study, which is which services are most effective in supporting entrepreneurs realize their success. And I think a lot of the work we were doing with this was obviously on your traditional economic impact metrics, right? So jobs created, revenues obtained. I like to go a little outside the box, and most of my work has been in university spin-outs that actually student founders spin out. And so I think, looking at metrics around who makes a great, quote, great founder, and how do you realize a successful small business, but maybe it's not the unicorn and all the magical stats that everybody talks about, because that's what I've seen and I've enjoyed in some of the programming that we, pushed out there, were student founders that are putting companies out there that help them create their own, salary and hire effectively in the community, but they may not be in the hundreds of millions and big billions exits, right? And they're churning out amazing innovations that are really saving and helping people's lives, or changing carbon footprints and making a difference out there. So that's the kind of stats that jazz me up. And I think that, again, that goes back to at least what we do at NBA, which is what are these services that are helping entrepreneurs realize their definition of success.
Well, it's very exciting. Now even more eager to hear about that. And here in the Northwest, the Portland guys came up with, they don't want unicorns, they want zebras. If you haven't, because zebras are in packs, and it's how does the pack survive? How does the herd survive, as opposed to the having that one exceptional and often mythical unicorn. I did not explain that at all well. I'll send you guys a link on that. But I think the metaphors are very important. That in the old days it was gazelles, the fast-growing companies, and for some reason everybody hated the term gazelle. Don't know quite why, but that getting the metaphors and the terminology right is something that I think is at the heart of all this. It's not just the right metrics, the right data, answering the right questions. But speaking of predictability, Adam, what's your big burning question?
So what I've really been concerned with for the last 8 years is accelerating what we call the velocity to outcome for entrepreneurs. So while many of the folks on this call and in the community are looking at things from the ecosystem level down, we flip it and we look at the individual entrepreneur up, and the resources that we can plug in on behalf of the individual entrepreneur in question. And so when you think about things in terms of the velocity to outcome, the outcome for a lot of businesses is that they need to stop being businesses. And in a weird way, that is the healthiest thing that we can do for a community, is to have fail-fast signals baked into every entrepreneurial endeavor that we're engaged with as communities, so that an entrepreneur who's logging something unproductive can put that down and pick up something that actually has a chance to succeed. And echoing Andrea, we're firm believers that this is not about IPOs and unicorns. This is about creating jobs, creating wealth, and strengthening communities. And that's not about growing billion-dollar businesses. It's about putting people to work.
Well, it's figuring out, what is. A lot of places get evaluated. They say, well, the number of businesses that started is a good thing. The number of the businesses that exit is 100% a bad thing. Just like businesses expanding and growing, and we're starting to understand that the importance of business dynamics, all that. So, Alistair, what's your big burning question? This is really fascinating, by the way, guys. Thank you.
My question is, as has been for a while now, how can we best measure what goes on inside ecosystems rather than as you said, Nora, I think a few minutes ago, inputs and outputs are important, and outcomes are important, but we've not really looked too closely at how can you measure the internal actions of ecosystems, and to help then create successful systems and business successes that are supported by the ecosystem. So like Adam, the ultimate result of this has to be able to create more businesses, more innovative businesses. Again, not huge ones. And to do that, we need to know more about what goes on inside support ecosystems.
Cool. I think, this is, for those of you who are new to the call, you're getting a sense that, we're actually all kind of, on the same page on this, that getting better metrics is, is an important place to start, because in any given community, being able to drill down a little farther. I still remember when the Kaufman Entrepreneurial Index, which I guess is being reworked, that I saw that Idaho was scoring at like near the top for entrepreneur, for startups, yay, and for number of growth firms, yeah, boo. We were like near the bottom. That we have, if you're doing well with a lot of startups, but you're not building growth firms, you're not building tech firms, we weren't even building family businesses. That's, there's some real diagnostic power there and some possible implications. But for the moment, the one person I kind of want to pick on because he made the mistake of talking about this on Facebook. Del, could you tell us a little bit about the project you're working on?
Which project?
Oh, well, your best one. The one I liked. Oh, sorry. No, is about working toward what would might a national survey look like?
Yeah, well, I'm less interested in, kind of the outputs of any particular ecosystem in this regard. I'm more interested in what ecosystem builders are seeing in the field as it relates to their perception of support, performance, engagement, the things they're trying to do, the barriers they have. So this is kind of a little bit unique in that, as we try to build the field, we're obviously trying to focus on those that we classify as an ecosystem builder and get a deeper understanding into what they're grappling with and determine mechanisms to support them. So that's what I've been toying with doing starting next year through the Fed, is to see if we can develop a national survey of ecosystem builders to kind of gather insight into, their experiences, challenge, successes, at least as they define it, and try to share that back out to kind of show if there's either consistencies or ways people are grappling and overcoming particular options or particular obstacles in their environment. So that's one of the things I'm working on. And like Alistair, my dissertation is more trying to see inside the black box of ecosystem building, particularly as it relates to relationship formation, which we say is critical, but I don't know if anybody that has discussed this as a metric yet to date. But if relationships are critical based upon the network density in an ecosystem, it's what we hypothesized. And we also need to develop metrics around, the nature of those relationships, how they're formed, their density, et cetera. But my biggest burning question, and I kind of made this point just in passing on the Google Doc, is, and I'm gonna summarize it a different way. My biggest question is, how do we create dynamic metrics to fit the definitions that each particular community group or sub-community group defines as to help them reach their own personal objectives? Because what I worry about is if we try to get too macro with metrics, we begin to create our version of a prescription versus what a community may actually want to achieve. So for example, in a lot of the diversity and inclusion work around inclusive ecosystem building, things like relationship formation, participation culture may be a valuable outcome in and of itself, even though if let's say the actual startup and scale up rate is not as great as we would maybe normally hope, but it created more durable and dense community relationships. So what I would like to see is, can we figure out, I mean, I think there's a space for kind of creating these standard metrics because it helps the field develop. But I also think we can't lose sight of kind of these subcultural, metrics that would be beneficial to communities as well. And how do we create dynamic metrics, even to the point where we maybe say, if your community wants to achieve X, these are some metrics that you may want to consider based upon the outcome you're trying to achieve.
That's from your lips to God's ear on that one. Have you met Ted Zoller and Marianne Feldman at North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is actually Ted's dissertation, where he was project that nobody would do willingly, but they did a social network analysis, sort of hardcore math of this. And one of the things they found is that with the right intervention, suddenly you suddenly got a denser network. In one case, by putting in one entrepreneur in residence, one connector, super connector into the community, that person connected with a lot of people, but you saw connections throughout the community, even the ones that this connector had not touched, whether it's modeling behavior or whatever, that suddenly you saw a much denser, more connected community. Now the math is horrendous, but we got computers. But being able to see how dense the network and who is connecting to whom, I can send along some links. But I was thinking of Karen Stevenson's work that I think she's out of Harvard, but she's now in Europe. But basically, what kind of, who are the players in the, at the margin, who are the critical players? Who are the super connectors who connect people to each other, and who are the people who, guard the door to valued resources? Clearly, you want more of the former and less of the latter. But there's some interesting stuff. I'll send it out to everybody if you're interested. But there are some interesting allies we have out there. So these calls always go too fast. So at Eric's nudging, can I shift gears and kind of do a round robin? What would be the number one thing we could do on this call that would keep you coming back? What would it help what you want to do? So Ben, for instance, what would you like to, in the peer learning, is there something you would like to learn?
I was afraid you'd ask me first. I don't have a clear answer.
Well, that's an answer. That's okay. That's really fine. So, Crystal, we have a month.
Some of the stuff, some of it is already happening. Just me understanding the resources and the projects that people are working on. And then I would say I like more discrete, concrete things, just in general as a personality trait. And so having goals of which we're working towards would be helpful as well.
That we can do. Christy, we haven't bothered you in a while. What would keep you coming back to these calls? What would you like to learn about?
Well, certainly the networking is amazing. It's happening behind the scenes of this call. But I would like to be able to share some of my actual instruments and things that I've designed with some of the experts, to have someone just take a critical look at it, from the measurement side of things with the research that I'm doing in Arkansas.
It sounds like that's, Andrea's got some research, Crystal's got some research, Stella is working on things. We do have a lot of some early, Jared as well. Jared, what would keep you coming back?
Similar, I think, to Andrea is if there's a concrete outcome or goal, so developing a set of best practices or a set of metrics, to be able to contribute to that or work with others on that would definitely keep me participating.
It's goal 5.0, sub-goal point one, is building. The objective is to build a learning community, a community of practice, whatever you want to call it, around, particularly around metrics. Is that
I think you just hit mute, Norris. I think you're muted. Can't hear you.
Hey, Morris, I think you muted yourself.
well, it's well now unmute is unmuted. Something weird about my dashboard, I swear. But basically, what I'm hearing is that what I've heard so far is that a lot of people on here already they either have a project that they have finished, that they're starting, or they're somewhere in the middle of. And maybe that's going forward that we could allocate, 5 minutes, to maybe each to maybe 4 or 5 projects, and we can share what we're doing. If you've got things to share, we can share by email or by Slack. By the way, are you all on if you're not on the Slack channel for Goal 5, you are certainly welcome. There is, as you pointed out, there's a Facebook page for the whole, for the entire ESHIP community. But as we move forward, if more and more people join this call, we will need to get more efficient at that. Eric, you look very thoughtful. Did you want to add something?
No, not really. I'm just sort of doing the housekeeping behind and trying to make sure we've got notes. We're almost at the end. So, don't want to interrupt the end of that other thought.
Okay. Well, so Alistair, what would keep you coming back?
I would agree with Christy. I think I'd certainly be interested in knowing what she's doing in more detail. And I think just general sharing of where we are, what we're doing, what our challenges are.
Is that, maybe it's just me, but it's feeling like a consensus. That's something we want to have be the peer learning part of this is understanding what each other are working on, and getting, it's a golden opportunity for all of us to learn from each other. As I said, I keep coming back because I learn stuff on every call. So that's, and I think that certainly helps what I'm doing, whether I'm wearing my hardcore research hat or whether I'm wearing an ecosystem builder hat. This is pretty exciting. So I'm trying to, who have I missed who'd like to, to share something? I feel like I keep putting check marks by people's names, but I'm sure I'm missing people. Does anyone else want to jump in? What would get you coming back? What would be how could these calls be of maximum value to you? Anybody want to?
Norris, if we can, and Stacy's got something, but if we can share the agenda link so that
it's already there. It's already in the chat.
Right, so that everybody can know that if you go on the Slack channel, that they can comment on it and they can add to it. If you don't think about something right now this minute, that they'll be able to access it at any time during the month, so that they can add to the call. So the format and any ideas can be held there. And then Stacy, I saw that you mentioned something in the chat.
Battle of the mute. Sorry about that. I also just wanted to echo the what sounds like a consensus for future calls and being able to learn from one another about what everybody's doing and staying on top of all the work that's happening. And I think that sounds really helpful.
Yeah, there's also a question. Yeah, it is 2 things that are on there. One is Jared and Andrea said they think they need an administrator to invite them to the Goal 5 channel.
Yeah, I think that is the case. I had to be invited. So I think Cecilia added me on there.
Okay. Well,
so I think I need to, there's the link to get into the Slack, but you should be able to go on all channels. And if you have a problem, then absolutely let me know. But you should be able to find the channel and do that. But I'll go address that right now.
Cool. And Dell had an excellent idea that setting up a wiki or something where we can share what maybe even just a Google Doc as the people to can share a little bit about what they're doing, links as needed. That might be a very quick and easy way for everybody to share what they're working on and what their big questions are. How can we help each other? I think that's I know that it's nice to be able to, because I think you're going to find a lot of the same questions. Some of them overlap in the questions, some of them overlap in terms of the resources that we need. So Dell, good on you. Would Google Doc work? We seem to be big on Google Docs in this group. So
before we jump too far into that, Norris, and create more documents, I think one opportunity might be for maybe Cecilia, you're best equipped here, but the higher notion here is really organizing monthly meetups to coordinate project teams. Projects teams being individuals working on projects that roll up to the goals. So Cecilia, I know you've had to describe this 1.5 million times. So I'm looking at you to perhaps, for folks on this call who maybe haven't been on previous descriptions of how this works, but the notion is that there will be many project teams around Goal 5, whether they're for projects that are specifically called out in the goals, or maybe other things, and that how using project canvases might help people get more visibility on what's going on in the community, not just across Goal 5, but the others. So maybe it's now, Cecilia.
Oh, sure. So what we wanted to do was to support the community in the collaborations that you in particular would like to form, but make sure that there's visibility. So some of the things that we wanted to help coordinate was a repository to be able to share those. So those project canvases, for those of you who were at the ESHIP Summit this year, there are project canvases that you worked on during the ESHIP Summit. Those canvases will be shared probably on an album on Facebook so that it's open for the general community to see. The other parts where you have made commitments or pledged to work on a project, they would be available for those who signed up to participate in some way, and those will be shared out widely, and we will probably put it also in the Slack channel. Slack being the opportunity to have an added layer of privacy. We don't want, because it has people's emails addresses and all of that, we don't want it all out there for people that aren't really involved in this work. So that's why we're not going to put it on out in mass or out in the public. Now, out of those project canvases, if you have a project that aligns with one of those and want to work with one of the existing project groups, great. Those emails are available for you to contact. It's not something that that we're going to do any more than to offer the visibility and alignment. Mass collaboration should happen through you, the community, as opposed to anything orchestrated by anyone. So as you form teams, storming and forming and working on projects, if you come up with an idea that's not already identified as one of the initiatives that have been raised up, then you'll be able to have the opportunity to fill out, and we'll have a templated project canvas for you that you can download and fill out yourself, and then start a team and work on that. So I know, like Adam's project, Adam wasn't at the ESHIP Summit this past year. He's been in the past, but he's got a project that he works on that really aligns under Goal 5, and that project should be out there and for people to maybe talk to Adam about and share, like Del was saying, about sharing the projects and giving feedback or asking questions or finding out more. We want all of that to happen, but all of that to happen in a way that it's of the community, by the community, for the community. And now the Kauffman Foundation is part of the community, but it is not the only one, nor should the Kauffman Foundation be a gatekeeper or the only sole funding resource that we have. My colleague Christine has been reaching out to other national resource providers to help orchestrate and align and coordinate other organizations that would help in supporting the efforts that are being brought upon by the community. So when we talk about the agendas for these meetup calls, that's why the goal update that we have in the beginning is more just about visibility. The whole idea of this community and this time together is so that it builds an opportunity for relationships, to create a sense of belonging, to create the trust so that you will share and be open to the opportunities to collaborate together. The coordination, the alignment, the mass collaboration, which is the ultimate goal, that's something that happens, but we know that at the very base of it is all about the relationships that we build. So that's what this time together is. The other part of this time together is so that we learn and inform each other. You have so many thought leaders on this call that have a lot of things to share and to explore. It's a great time to explore together. So we want to make sure that we foster the environment where you're all sharing in community, right? It's not one person gets to decide what the course of the action is. That's why that agenda form is shared for you. So Norris and Eric are helping to facilitate that conversation. I'm here to support all of your efforts and give you an opportunity. So as you create a canvas and you want to share it with the community, we will put it on that dashboard. So that dashboard and all of these links will be shared with you. I'm happy to, with Norris and Eric's help, put together an email where we can take all of these notes and share it back out to everyone on the call, so you don't have to have memorized anything or jotted anything down along the way. Did I leave out anything, guys?
I shared a couple links in the chat, but I'll just make it really tangible. So the idea is every month this meetup meets and people interested in Goal5 get to come together and meet. We share in a quick round of updates what each of us are working on it as it relates to the ESHIP goals and building the field around Goal 5. And then there's obviously some peer learning, which is the part I'm really excited about too. But just the way that could look like, for example, is Dell, you talked a little bit about your survey, your national survey of ecosystem builders. That's a really cool idea. Lots of people would be interested in that. You could take the link I just sent, which is a template to the project, a project template for the ESHIP. You could individually fill that out. If you wanted to form a team, great. If it's just you and your staff, great. And that you would send that on to Cecilia. Directions are all in the link. And then that'll just be updated on the dashboard. And then once a month, you come join the call and say, hey, here's where we're at. Need some help with this, or looking for someone to join this. That's kind of the notion of it. And the idea is really keeping visibility across all of us, because everybody's working on really neat stuff. But like we heard in all of the conversations, a lot of it's overlapping and connecting, and just having visibility is like the first step, and that may get us to more collaboration beyond that. So I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, thanks, Andy, for posting the link to the Canvas, because a lot of the people on this call are going, Canvas, what? It's very easy to fill out. It's not very strenuous. Dell's topic is one that intrigued me, because there already are a lot of people who've been involved with Goal5 who would, find this part of something really important that they would be interested in. So there'd be a certain amount of resonance. The nice thing about being able to get visibility for your projects is there are people who are going to go, oh yeah, I want to help with that. Or it may inspire them to come up with, I have an even better idea. And I think we'll have some opportunity to share this both offline and together as we move forward. We are considerably—
Can I ask two questions real quick?
Sure.
So can I be able to see these links outside of this chat? Is there like a different document that kind of allows us to access it outside of this chat?
So there's a dashboard that has these, and the Canvas will be shared on the dashboard. And yes.
And then the second question is, what if I want to connect, for example, with Alistair on his systems work, or the individual that's talking about the work she's doing in Arkansas, because we have Fed staff there outside of Goal 5?
So the best way to communicate at this point during the month, so that it's not contingent on just this call and just the facilitators, is probably the Slack channel, because the Slack channel is full of the people who are more like elbows deep in doing the work. The people on the Facebook, so Facebook has a much lighter, there's a wider community, but they're generally interested in ecosystem building. The people who are really on the boots, feet on the ground, all of these people on the calls are probably more in the Slack channel. So those are probably your best ways without having to worry about having to communicate with myself or Norris or Eric or Andy or anybody. And we're more than happy to connect you. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But in the meantime, the idea isn't that we're going to be a bottleneck for you to be able to engage with each other. And I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So Eric and Norris, do you have anything to say as we wrap up?
Well, just real quick, that if you're burning to get introduced, I'm happy to do that. Nothing like sending Dell more emails, but Dell, we can hook you up. This is a good crop of people. But it's nice the question about how do we move forward. I just say, if there's something of peer learning that you would like to contribute at some point, something you'd like to teach us, don't be shy and pinging me, and we'll get you on the schedule. And thank you for being here. Eric?
Same thanks to everyone. Basically, also to Dell's point or question earlier, as an experiment, what I'm doing is I'm capturing all the different links that were mentioned during our call, and I'm putting them in the call notes as well. You usually also get, and Cecilia, as you mentioned before, she'll send a follow-up email, or we'll send a follow-up email about what occurred on the call as well. So you're going to get it from a couple different directions, and part of that's figuring out which way is most effective. So so there will be a lot of different ways to find the different links.
Will not be able to hide. You cannot hide. You can run, but you can't hide. Anybody else have anything to chime in? This is your call, not mine and Eric's call. Any final?
I think that's good. Thanks, everybody.
Good. Well done. This is an incredible group, and I'm honored to be here. See you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Later.
Ciao.
Oh, have a good drive, Chad.